For the past 40 years, the Antique Rose Emporium, an 8-acre rose garden, nursery, gift shop, and popular tourist destination in Independence, Texas, has championed the charm and resilience of old garden roses. In 2022, Jim Keeter and his wife Kim purchased the Antique Rose Emporium, where he now shares his passion for resilient roses and ecological gardens with thousands of visitors from across the country who come to explore the vibrant blooms, experience the artistry of horticulture, and feel connected to a legacy that has transcended generations. Mr. Keeter developed a lifelong love of plants and sustainable landscapes while earning his Bachelor of Science degree in rangeland ecology and management at Texas A&M University in 1983. We won't hold that against him. His passion for plants has carried him through a versatile career in ranch brokerage, landscape planning, and plant sourcing. Working first with his father's firm and then building his own business, Keeter has learned every facet of horticulture and land design, from project management to creative planting strategies. Without further ado, please welcome Mr. Jim Keeter.
Thank you, Kathleen. And thanks to all of y'all coming out this evening and being here with us. And I want to thank the McFaddin-Ward house for even asking an old toot like me to come down here and talk to y'all. So I'm very humbled by the opportunity. So yes, I have a thing about plants, and I have a thing about just pretty things. I mean, I've got a beautiful wife, and I have a beautiful garden, and then I also have a beautiful 21 acres. Just picture that in your mind. Well, actually, you don't have to. We'll get to it. Of blooms out in our production fields. It's just amazing. So the talk this evening is mainly about preserving the past, cultivating the future, and our journey with the Antique Rose Emporium. Now, yes, I got my Bachelor of Science in Rangeland Ecology and Management from Texas A&M. Now, I married a girl that went to that other school. And she's continued to put up with me, amazingly enough. And so after I got out of A&M, I went back to San Antonio. I went to law school, and I became a ranch broker. And having been in and out of my dad's landscape architectural firm, I knew a lot of folks that could make a lot of things happen and make people happy with that. And so I was or I still am, I'm a buyer's representative. So you as a prospective ranch purchaser would come to me and tell me, give me your Christmas wish list. And I'd try to find it as close as I can to that. And then I could, if there were historic amenities on the property, I had the group of architects and contractors that specialized in that. If there were no amenities, I could fill that bill as well. And so at the end of the project, I would hand you the keys to your ranch, cow, and I'd even show you which end of the cow to feed. And so it was a turnkey thing. So I got to do that for a number of years, and that was just absolutely wonderful. And all the while I was doing that, I was also the administrator for my dad's landscape architectural firm. And Daddy had a phenomenal practice, starting out in the early 60s. He graduated from A&M in 1956 with his degree in landscape architecture. And he started out his career with the San Antonio Riverwalk, the Hemisphere, the World's Fair in 1968. And the funny thing was, the fair was actually bankrupt when it opened. Daddy got paid in, a part of his fee was paid in tickets. So I was standing out there with a box of tickets inviting people to come into the World's Fair. It's pretty humorous. But that gave Dad a lot of recognition and a little bit of juice back in the early 60s, everything was tropical plants. And the first cold snap, your elephant ears laying down, your banana tree's gone limp, and you're redoing it all over again. And Dad was like, that is just dumb as dirt. We have got such a phenomenal palette of native plant material that, not only bloom colors, but the textures of the leaves and the foliage and the colors of the foliage. I mean, why weren't we doing that sooner? Well, Daddy was able to get a whole bunch of growers down in South Texas to start providing him with native plant material. So we're going to flash forward to the 80s, the early 80s, when Mike Shoup and Dr. Bill Welsh from A&M came up with this whole idea of the Rose Emporium. And that's where we're going to head. Oh, and I do have 2 grandbabies now. So there we are in 22 on the upper left. That's my wife, Kim, in the blue. My son, Tres, who's right here. And then my son-in-law and middle daughter. One of my other hats, I've been an ordained pastor for 16, 17 years. And so I got to marry them. And so they're in 24. You can see she's hiding something there. Not very well. And so Teddy's our first one there on the bottom left. And now we have Sully on the bottom right. So things have been busy around our household for a while. And yes, I don't have the beard anymore. It's summertime. It's just gotten too hot. And it's going to upset a lot of kids that come out to see Santa Ho-Ho out at the garden. So my wife and I got married in the year 2000. As I mentioned, I'm an Aggie, so I try to set things up for myself so I don't mess up. So even year 2000, I married her on Valentine's Day. There is absolutely no way in heaven or earth that I will ever forget our anniversary with all the commercials and everything coming on. And this is the Valentine Rose. I drove to the Antique Rose Emporium in the year 2001 and brought that Valentine Rose home to my wife for our first anniversary present to her. I'm a sentimental sap. So we've got a lot of things going on out at the Rose Emporium. So our garden, destination garden, is about 8.92 acres. And in the background there, I'm a pistol packing preacher that owns his own chapel. And that Model T right there, that's my 1924 Ford stake bed double T truck. I'm the second owner of a 100-year-old vehicle. How crazy is that? It had everybody down at the Washington County Courthouse chuckling a whole bunch. They're all coming over and going, "Are you serious?" Yeah, really am. So we have the chapel. We have an old Victorian house and pavilion. We've got the gazebo. My wife's degree from UT was in early childhood development and education, and so she has been just coming up with new programs constantly to get the kids out into the gardens and expose them to things that they just don't normally get to do and see. And we do educational seminars and hands-on workshops. We've got the gift shop and the nursery. So it's a fun place. There's lots going on all the time. And so this is the garden, the green lights there. So this is the main parking lot right here. This is Highway 50. This is Sam Houston Road. Sam Houston lived in Independence, Texas with his wife. And just around the corner from us is the oldest Baptist church in the state of Texas. And Sam Houston actually got some churching while he was out here. And just down this Sam Houston Road, kind of back up down here a little bit to the right, is a creek, a Rocky Creek is what it's called. And he got baptized in that creek by the Baptist preacher. And when he came up out of the water, he turned to the preacher and said, "I surely feel bad for them fish downstream." And his initials are actually carved in one of the pews. So the preacher must have gotten a little dry that day on the sermon. So this is our production field, and it's just right around the corner from our nursery and the display gardens. But this is what I get to be around all year long. It's just wonderful. We do all our rose propagation over here, our breeding programs on this side. We've got over 400 varieties of roses. I don't know them all, I promise you. But they're all wonderful. We do contract growing for other nurseries and growers. We have a breeding and naming rights program. I'll show you a rose in a little bit that has a cool story and a name to it. And then, of course, we do the education and marketing, and all that stuff happens over there. So our water table is a good, strong water table. However, it is high in saline. It's got a high salt content. So we have 2 of these irrigation lakes that we pump the water from the ground into it, and then we let those solids settle out, and then we irrigate our fields out of that. These are our grow houses right here. This is our number 2 greenhouse. The number 1 greenhouse is kind of over here. But this is kind of an overview. These are part of our trial gardens for our breeding program. And then on some of the roses, right after they're propagated, we can't set them straight out directly into the field yet, because on some varieties, they're just a little bit tender when they're still little like that. And so there's a metal frame all over this area right here, and we've got another one, an even bigger one back here that has a metal frame, and we'll stretch our fabric cloth over that, the sun cloth, and give them just a little bit of a extra oomph to get going, and it usually is about 3 to 4 weeks is all we need, and then we take the sunshades off, and they're just out there making their thing happen. So the Antique Rose Emporium, when Mike Shoup graduated from A&M with his degree in horticulture, he started doing a woody ornamental nursery and a native tree nursery. And it was doing okay, but one of his professors, when he was getting his master's degree in horticulture, was Dr. Bill Welch. Absolutely a prince of a gentleman. He is absolutely amazing. And I've been fortunate enough to know him not only through Mike, but also through my dad. And so Dr. Welch said, "You know what, I see a great big hole in our market, and that is in the old roses." He said, "You know, I'm traveling all the time. I'm hitting all these different nurseries, and it's just another hybrid tea after another hybrid tree. I mean, it just goes on and on and on with these new hybrid teas. Nothing wrong with them, but there's something about these old roses that we'll get to that just, you can kind of fall in love with them pretty easy." And so the first unauthorized rustle, as in rose rustling, was in 1982, and it was a mermaid, which is that, oh, dadgummit. I told you to keep me away from tech. This is the mermaid here. Now, we keep that trimmed down because people are walking through it and all that bit. My mother-in-law had one on her property in Fredericksburg that was about it was 3 plants, and it was about 35 foot long, I don't know, 12, 14 foot tall, and probably 15 to 18 foot wide. I mean, and you would have that massive bush in bloom, and it was absolutely gorgeous. She's also pretty vicious. She's got some serious thorns. So you had to be careful when you're messing around close to her. But that was the first rose that was rustled, and that was what Antique Rose started from. And so, anyway, that was the foundation plant for us. And so, in 1983 is when they actually kicked the doors open to the Antique Rose Emporium. And again, that was Dr. Welch and Mike Shoup. I found out about the Antique Rose Emporium because my dad, being so strong on the native plant material, well, these old roses are just as hardy and tough as all of those native plants. Why wouldn't you want to utilize them? And so Daddy was using them on his projects all over the place. And so a lot of these roses were found in cemeteries, old home sites, fences, and pastures. I've seen some places where the old homestead house was leaning over at about 35 to 40 degree angle. I think the only thing that was keeping that building up were the termites holding hands. and there's nothing else going on. It hadn't been going on in probably 70, 80 years on that property. But out in front, there's this beautiful rose bush. And so when we can, we get permission. When we can't, we just take a couple of cuttings. We don't hurt anything, and then we go on about our business. But the main focus was on roses that thrive here in the South. As you all know, we have some extreme weather conditions around here. Hot, humid, then you go into hot and dry, and then you go into a super wet season. I mean, we've got it all. And when we were in Fredericksburg back in, that was the Snowmageddon of 21. We lost a bunch of trees on our 8-acre place there in Fredericksburg. And I mean, once we finally got, after 3 weeks of snow and ice, it finally started thawing out. And I started looking, we had, like I said, we had 268 roses out there of the antique roses. And they looked awful, absolutely dreadful. I mean, everything was just brown canes is all that was coming up. So I called Mike up here at the Emporium. I said, Mike, what the hell can I do to get these, what do I need to do? Just point me in the right direction, I'll get it done. He said, Jimmy, you know what to do. He said, take your steel chainsaw, whack them off about 10 inches above the ground, they'll come back. All but one came back. And the one that didn't come back was the one that was absolutely the furthest out on the property, and my mother-in-law didn't like dragging the hose out that far. So that one was our sacrificial rose, but everything else came back and with vigor. And we'll get into some of that. All of our roses are on their own rootstock. And that's really important to me. I've seen so many grafted roses where in that condition, in that position that I was in 2021, if these roses were on grafted roots, that rootstock would be the only thing that'd be coming up. So the roses that we really desired and wanted were gone. And so by being on their own rootstock, you don't have that issue. And I found a rose for a lady. She was in Austin, and it was her mother's rose. She dug it up, took it to her new house after her mom passed, and she sold the mom's house. And she said, she sent me a bunch of pictures, said, can you find out what this rose is? I was like, oh, my good Lord. And so I asked Mike, and Mike sent me back this cryptic email that said, it's just another China rose. I'm like, okay. So I got to dig a little deeper. Well, I was leaving the office one evening, and we've got a pretty good library on roses. So I know that shocks y'all. But there was this little pamphlet that was kind of stuck out a little further than the rest of the books. I thought, I'll just take this home, and that's what I'll thumb through tonight while I'm going to bed. And it was on the historic Denver cemetery. And I'm thumbing through this little pamphlet. I found that rose. And it was a rootstock for a rose in the cemetery, in the historic cemetery. The top froze and the rootstock came back, and that was the rose that she had. So that was a really cool and fun thing. When I called her, I said, I found it. She said, where? Denver Cemetery. She goes, oh, good Lord. But so we're kind of we've got a really cool niche market that we get to be in. And so then the demonstration gardens were actually established in 86, and that was a lot of Dr. Welsh's involvement with that. So that building is the only original building or historic building to our property that was original to the property. And that was the Mike Harrison stone kitchen. That's what it looked like in 85, and this is what it looks like now. It's been completely restored. There's a cellar underneath it, and this rose right here is Climbing Pinky. She is a wonderful climbing rose, repeat bloomer, and she likes to show off. I cannot tell you how wonderful that rose is. Last year, we went from our spring Rose Festival all the way to our Fall Rose Festival in November, and she was still blooming. That's just pretty awesome to me. And so as word got out about folks Mike and Dr. Welsh, I mean, Dr. Welsh, he was such a lovely soul. He knew everybody. He's never met a stranger in his life. And if you spent 5 minutes with him, it was like you've known him for a lifetime. He's that kind of guy. And so he has a whole lot of folks out here that he knows that he could call and say, hey, if you're not doing anything this weekend, why don't you head out towards Caldwell and just hit the back roads, and if you see a neat rose, bring it to me. And so, and over time, those numbers of folks just increased and increased and increased. And so, and they became the Texas Rose Rustlers. And it was, it's rediscovering those lost varieties. In my dad's architectural and landscape architectural firm, we did lots of historic preservation. We did a ton of houses down in the King William area in San Antonio along the Riverwalk. We did the Governor's Mansion in Austin. We did the Texas State Historic Cemetery. I mean, and we had 10 buildings or 10 properties on Main Street in Bernie, Texas, that we redid and put back into use. And so these old roses, they deserve every bit as much respect as these old buildings do. They go together. You get the roses along with a beautiful historic house. Man, that's just makes my heart happy. And it's, to preserve that living history. So, down in Navasota, Texas, Pamela Puryear. She was apparently quite the character. I did not get to meet her, unfortunately, but she was the main thrust. She was the person that really was behind the Rose Rustlers and got everybody up and running and moving. Margaret Sharp was one of the first ones, of course, Dr. Welsh, and then Greg Grant, graduate student from A&M. He's got his doctorate in horticulture. He works with A&M's Ag Extension program. He's in Tyler, Texas. And then, of course, Mike Shoup and Douglas Welsh, and then Cleo Barnwell. Well, I've got a lot of pictures of Greg Grant when he was young and a college student, and Pam and Dr. Welch as they're hitting all these different properties and talking people into letting them have a cutting of their roses. And that goes from North Texas, clean down to the Mexican border, that they were doing that. And I just saw Greg Grant. This last weekend, we were at the Tyler Rose Garden, and that was with the Heritage Rose Foundation. And then from Tyler, Sunday morning, we went down to Shreveport, Louisiana, for the American Rose Society's garden. And so it was just a rosy kind of weekend all weekend. And Greg Grant was there, and he did a talk. And his talk was on the rose rustlers. And I read the book twice. And afterwards I said, hey, Greg, why didn't you tell the whole story about Pam? He says, what do you mean? I said, you talked about all the letters she wrote you, and y'all were corresponding back and forth while you were a student there at A&M, and you left out the part where she wanted to paint you nude in the rose garden. He said, yeah, I don't think I want to do that. I said, you put it in print. Anyway, she was a real character. And so there's Pam right there. She was I think her thing was watercolor, and then she also did some the oil. And she was a big photographer. She did all the calligraphy stuff. I mean, she just had that artsy thing going about her. And that's Mike Shute there. There's a young Greg Grant right there. There he is now. And there's Dr. Welsh. And the first couple of years that we had, when we purchased the Rose Emporium, Dr. Welsh would come over from A&M just to hang out with us and see how things were going. Greg told me this last weekend that he's not mobile anymore. And it's just, Lynn Lowry. I've known Lynn Lowry since I was knee-high to a grasshopper. Phenomenal botanist. I mean, he's got plants named after him in the scientific naming of them because he found them and brought them to commerce. My dad's older brother, he was the city of San Antonio's horticulturalist. So and that was really cool because when Daddy was doing the San Antonio Riverwalk, it was Uncle Tom's crews that were doing all the labor in planting the plants that Dad specified in the plans. And so now there's a Tom Keeter Marina down on the San Antonio River. And so I was, I want to say probably a sophomore in high school. And Uncle Tom called and said, hey, Jimmy, what are you doing this next week? I said, I'm on summer vacation. What do you want to do? He said, I want you to come with me on a plant hunting trip. I said, okay, sounds cool. It was Lynn Lowry on that side of the truck, Uncle Tom on that side of the truck, and I was sitting in the middle with Uncle Tom with the gear shift, and I was dodging him. We ended up going down to the interior of Mexico, and those guys went bananas. They brought back the Montezuma cypress, they brought back the Mexican sycamore, and a whole bunch of other plants that that have been introduced over here now. But that was a crazy trip. We're driving down this, a goat path, and we get to this little rusty old house, and out in the tree was this hunk of meat hanging. And Uncle Tom said, I'll be right back. He pulls up, hops out, knocks on the door. This little Mexican lady comes out with a knife like that, and she just starts whittling stuff off that chunk of meat and put it on a newspaper and gave it to Uncle Tom. Well, Uncle Tom and Lynn ate it. I saw the flies on it. I said, nah, don't think I want to go down that path. No, thank you. But Lynn was just a sweetheart of a man. So the found roses. The Caldwell Pink is just an absolute wonderful rose, and it's one of the earliest roses that we got along with Mermaid. There was a small cemetery near Brenham, and there was a rose that had clearly outlived everything around it. As Mike liked to say, when he would find a rose in the cemetery, he said, if that dead guy can grow it, I stand a chance. and there was no care, and it was just thriving. And so it's just a great example of what these rose rustlers have brought back to us. The Metabolist, that was my dad's favorite rose. If he had to pick one, that would have been it. And what's wonderful about the Metabolist is it's the simple petal, and I'm kind of fond of the simple petal. I know a lot of people like the really curlied up and all that, and that's wonderful. I love those simple petals. The Metabolist that was on our property at 508 North Main Street there in Bernie, it was probably 10 foot wide and 9 to 10 foot tall. And you get an array of coloration across the bush, because when it first comes out, it's a real strong pink, but as that bloom ages, it goes through the light pinks and on into the soft whites. So when you see that on something that big, it definitely grabs your attention. It's just a beautiful rose. Now, Tress's favorite rose is the Chrysler Imperial, and it looks a lot like the Valentine, but it's an even darker, deeper, like a Cabernet Sauvignon, kind of dark wine red, and really fragrant. Well, there it is. There's the Chrysler Imperial. I haven't seen this presentation yet. My wife put it together for me. And just in time for me to get here. So, when Mike started out, he had the place there in Independence. Well, he branched out, and he had another one down on the northeast side of San Antonio, and it was a beautiful, beautiful retail nursery. All of the construction was really well done in the Spanish style architecture. So, I mean, the walls and the stucco work were fantastic. And then he had another two-story wood frame building in Georgia. And he and Gene did that for a while, but it just became too hard being in 3 different places when he needed to be there. And so he sold Georgia first, and then he sold the San Antonio. I still get customers from San Antonio in the garden. Why in the world did y'all close this? I had nothing to do with it. It wasn't me. But anyway, so they had those other locations, and now everything is right on the Independence property. There's been some additional historic buildings moved onto the property. The chapel was new build in '91, and that's when they did the gazebo. And so we get to serve customers in all 50 states through our e-commerce side. Before COVID, e-commerce was just kind of there. During COVID, it exploded. And when I say exploded, I mean exploded. Because people were just sitting around their house going, can't go anywhere. And this place looks yucky, so what can I do? They bought roses, and it was amazing. And and so from COVID on, it has stayed a roaring Jenny. I mean, she's moving. And we just started collecting the customer. We have a guest book thing, and that's what my wife was talking about, collecting customer data. But we have visitors from, it's way more than 15 states. I think her numbers were wrong there. But anyway, we get a lot of out-of-state customers, and we've had a whole bunch of folks internationally come in. And I think on the international, I know there's been at least 6 couples that I met that came from Germany. And so I think she just counted Germany one time, kind of a thing. But that's fine. But we are the #2 destination spot in Washington County, Texas. What's the #1, gang? Bluebell. Ding, 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 ding is exactly right. Bluebell Creamery. And I couldn't afford it, plus it wasn't for sale. So I got #2. but having them right around the corner is pretty good. But we've got customers now that are third and fourth generations coming back to the gardens, and that is just, I can't tell you how happy that makes me. All of these, I don't know, there seems to be an emotional tie and connection to gardens, and especially, I don't want to be biased here, but especially to roses. I was out in the garden, and I was watching a lady with a cane, and she was a little bit unsteady, so I went up to her and I gave her my arm. I said, "How can I help you?" And she said, "Well, I'm celebrating my 85th birthday out here, and I'm buying myself the white rose that my grandma had at the back of her farmhouse." And I said, "Okay, white roses are right there. Let's head that direction." So we started easing the way over, and I said, "Do you have any idea what name?" "No." "Do you remember what it looks like?" "No." "Okay, we'll get it figured out." We got within 5 feet of the plant round where the roses were, and she just stopped in her tracks, and she said, "I just smelled it." I said, "Okay." So I just started bringing one rose at a time out of that round to her, and she said, "That's it." I thought she was kind of goofy, to be honest, but come to find out, the sense of smell is the strongest memory maker that you got. I thought it would be like putting your hand on a stove and going, "Ooh, don't think I want to do that again." It actually creates a stronger memory, the smell. That's just amazing. And so she got 2 of them, one for each side of the back door of her house. Pretty cool stuff. So why the old roses matter? You know, there are some of the newer hybrids, and I'm not going to bash them because that's not what this is about. They don't have the traits that we've got in these old roses for disease resistance, drought tolerance, all those things that make a really great rose. And so it's not just the bloom, and it's not just the fragrance. You could have a rose out in your yard that doesn't, I mean, we've got roses that just, I can't smell them. Now, somebody else can maybe pick up a scent or two, but I can't smell them. But they make such a great visual statement, you wouldn't want to not have it in your garden. And they're just, you know, Dad, when Dad found Antique Rose Emporium, when he would do his landscape designs, the roses were the anchor plant in that design. And then he would come in with all the complementary natives that would show that off, and it would show the natives off. And so it was everything working in conjunction with itself. So you have the different textures, the different colors, the different heights. It just makes it really eye appealing. And again, the performance, they just do great. That's the Sombreruel rose, and she is fragrant and she is pretty. So that kind of gets to what I was just saying. It's not just about the perfect blooms. There's so many different styles and shapes and sizes of blooms, and it's amazing how people, this is a rose to them. Somebody else comes in, no. This is a rose to me. It's amazing how different people see things. And so I had a lady say, "So Jim, what's your favorite rose?" I hem and hawed. I told her about Dad's favorite rose being a Metabolist, and Tressa's being the Chrysler Imperial, and my wife's got her favorite. I said, I couldn't make up my mind, so I just bought them all. And she's like, "Oh, you are a stinker." I said, "Yeah, ask my wife." So you're able to, with these roses, because we've got some that stay itty bitty, we got some that they'll eat your house if you give them a chance. And so wherever you are, in whatever size you need in your garden and in your yard, it can be filled very easily. And the cool thing about gardens, you may really love it today. 6 months from now, you may go, been there, done that. Change it up. You get to do it all over again. It's constantly in motion and in flux, and gardening is just wonderful. But you can just start simple, and of course you want to choose the plants that are suited to your environment, and again you just observe and adjust. You keep putting your stamp on it and making it exactly as you want it. Zena, this is our newest patented rose, and that was bred by Dr. Basie. He was a physician in Caldwell, Mike Shoup, and Andrew Barocco. Now, Andrew, we still have some of Andrew's roses. He used to work for us as the breeder, and we snatched him up from A&M's program over there. And so we just got to see him when we were over in Tyler and Shreveport. He's now living up in Maryland. He followed his girlfriend up there. It's like, oh my. Yeah, he said, it's different. You think? And so this is my son-in-law, Nathan. He was a ground pounder. He was in the Army, and so he's the one that I married to Mackenzie, and he's the one that's given me 2 adorable grandsons. And he's our production manager, so he's over everything on that 21 acres, and he throws in and helps us over on the garden side as well. And we're continuing with our breeding program. We've got several really wonderful roses that'll be coming out soon. And so, to be an antique rose, you have to have been around from 1865 back. So when I started breeding roses back in, I guess it was the early 1700s, we would take what we're wanting to do. I mean, I've bred cattle, I've bred horses, now I'm breeding roses. You're taking the best attributes of this rose and putting it with the best attributes of this rose, because you have hopes and desires that you're going to get the best of both of them. Sometimes it works, a lot of the time it doesn't. So those just go away. But we're wanting to breed into them the disease resistance, the drought tolerance, the bloom style, the fragrance. I mean, everything that you want in a rose is what we're trying to continue to push towards and make them even better. This rose right here is called Up for Anything, and that was a 2024 American Rose Society gold medal winner for us. She is really, really pretty, and she's up for anything. I mean, cold, hot, don't matter. And these are some of them that we have in our trial area right now, and we're going to see where they go, what they can do. That to get that deep of purple is fairly rare, and so we're really excited about that. There's a couple of purples out right now, not quite like this. This one, this white one, it was a full moon, and I was out at that big lake that you saw earlier. I was beaver hunting. We have beavers. Who'd have thunk it? Middle of the dry county, and I've got a beaver problem. We even had an otter on the garden side show up. Hell, the river's at least 5-6 miles away, the Brazos, but here they are. And those beavers are destructive as all get out. So I've been making them go away. But it was a full moon, and I drove out there. I turned my lights off on the truck so I could kind of sneak up and get fairly close. That rose looked like it looked like it was electrical and lit up as it was reflecting that moonlight off that full moon. It was shocking. It was so pretty. Oh, here's some more of our Trailblazer roses. Thousand Wishes is fantastic. Again, that's a 2025 award winner and a 2024 award winner. Butterfly Bliss is really pretty. It's got that looser bloom, but you got that shocking yellow center with the stamens. It's really pretty. Grandbaby. How did I get that name? In 2025, that was another AGRS award winner for us. The Fuego de Amor is really cool because of the color variation within the bloom, and how it starts out with that shocking pink and goes into the yellows and all. It's just really neat. And then Cold Settlement. Now that was a 2020 award winner. Cold Settlement, simple petal, white, good sized bloom. That one turned me into a hippie. That thing has got so many hips on it, and they're big, beautiful red hips. And so for our Fall Festival of Roses last year, my wife decided that she was going to do something with those hips. I said, okay, you know, make tea or what? She said, no, I'll surprise you. I said, okay. She said, so go pick them. I said, all right, I'll go pick the hips. So I cut all these hips off, and I had like 4 of the plastic baggies from H-E-B full of them. And she made a chutney. Now, I'm a simple guy. Salt, pepper on my steak, and mashed potatoes next to it, maybe some string beans or something like that. I'm a happy guy. She said, try this chutney with your steak. Holy cow. It opened up a whole new world to me. That was so flipping good. It was amazing. And our dinner guests just went absolutely nuts over it. So Cold Settlement is an awesome one if you want a good size hip to bring into the kitchen. Wicked Sisters, a wonderful rose. Femme Fatale, she won the best hybrid tea rose for us and most fragrant rose. Magnolia Memories is beautiful because she's got that white and real faint pink to her. She's awesome. So on our naming of roses, we had an employee, Inel. She kept books and all that stuff in the office, and she was diagnosed with cancer of the liver. And so Mike gave her the opportunity to pick the rose that she wanted and to name it. And so she named it Always Hope. She passed 2 years after we bought and was there with us during the transition and all. So that one has kind of a strong place in my heart. That Lady Banks, that yellow one, she comes in white as well. She's a lot like the Peggy Martin rose. Smaller canes, prolific blooms, and no thorns. For a climber, that makes it a pretty cool deal. One of our Victorian buildings on the property is called Champneys Green, and it was moved from in town proper in Brenham and moved out to our property. And we've got a yellow Lady Banks and a white Lady Banks on a huge trellis that goes, it reaches up to the eave line on that old house. So it's probably 14 foot tall on the trellis. And so you've got the white and the yellow mixed together going up. It's pretty striking. That autumn damask, any of the damasks are going to have really, really good fragrance. That just is part of their character. The oil in those roses are heavy and really nice. And these are just some more. I love this little guy. This thing called a green rose. That's the bloom. It's really green. But what's cool about it is when it's a great conversation starter for people out in your garden. But if you get up there to the bloom and you just kind of move it around a little bit, it smells like cracked black pepper. Where did that come from? But it's really neat. The Superior is wonderful. Duchess de Brabant is great. Hermosa is a really pretty rose. I like the way she opens up. Archduke Charles been around forever. That's our chapel in the background here. But Archduke's been around forever, and it's just a wonderful rose. These are some of the ones that are actually more fragrant than your regular rose shrub or shrub rose. So these are some of those. There's a Penelope up here. Between Champney's house and that old Victorian house, that's where the brides go get prettied up and the grooms do the same, hopefully. And so you go out the back door there, and we have this big covered pavilion, and that's where the after stuff happens, the dinner and all that bit. Well, we've got Penelope. There's 2 rows of Penelope with a walkway between them, and I want to say it's at least 25 foot long on each of those planting beds. And the breeze blowing through with that Penelope out there, it is just absolutely phenomenal. It is so amazing. Delish is a fairly new one. Savannah is a gorgeous little rose right here. And of course, Magnolia Memories. Again, I can just keep saying how wonderful they are. So these are some of our repeat blooming climbers. So the Lady Banks, yellow and white, the Peggy Martin, those are spring bloomers only. So you'll get a wonderful flush in the spring. Some of it may kind of drag out a little bit till it gets just too hot, and then they just poop out. And every now and again, I don't know if it's an angel that comes by and touches it or whatever, but sometimes in the fall, you'll get a light flush of roses. Not very often. So just count on those 3 spring only. But the Zephyr's Ruin is phenomenal. The Red Cascade, she makes a real strong statement. The Cecil Bruner climber over there, same thing. There's my wife calls it an allée. Anyway, it's a frame, some frames that we have roses growing up, and you go down the walkway or through it, down the walkway to the gazebo. Thank you. And we've got Red Cascade on a couple of those. It's just so striking, the red on them. And there's that Climbing Pinky, the one that was on the Stone Kitchen building as a repeat bloomer. Parade is awesome. And there's Old Blush. So any of the Old Blushes, whether it's the climber or a bush, the fragrance is phenomenal. New Dawn is another really nice one. The Iceberg Climber is a really fantastic, and of course we saw the Sombrelle earlier with the bigger picture of it, and then Parade. Rêve d'Or, I think. Okay, so there's the Peggy Martin, and that's on one of our trellises out there. It's probably about 14 foot tall, and they kind of vary in diameter. There's 3 of them, but it's big, even bigger, and oh my gosh, that's huge size. And there's the Lady Banks White. right there. Cherokee is an old rose. That's out of the multiflora family. When we were coming down from Brenham today, all out in these pastures and along their fence lines and stuff, there is a multiflora. I don't know which one it is. I don't know if it's the Rosa multiflora or I don't know which variety it is. But those were brought in from China back in the 1800s for erosion control. And it's kind of like the Georgia cane. The highway department brought that Georgia cane down, and all of a sudden it's, all up and down people's riparian ways, and it really takes over. And we found out the same thing with some of these old China roses like the Cherokee. They will just take over if they're given the chance. Fortuniana is a wonderful rose. When she's in full bloom, it almost looks like it's been snowed on. There's so much white on it. And now we've already kind of talked about some of these roses before. However, these are in the Earth Kind Rose program, and that was a program that was set up by Texas A&M's Extension Service. And when it started years and years ago, Antique Rose Emporium always supplied them with roses to do their trials. And what they were looking for was everything that an antique rose is: hardy, strong, disease resistant, drought resistant, cold tolerant, all those features. So when it first started out, I think it was in Richardson, so Dallas Metroplex. They had a field out there, and that's where they would trial the roses for 4 years. And so the first year they would plant the rose, they put mulch over it, and they would water it, water those roses in for the first year. After that, they reduced watering by a minimum of 70%, made sure that it still had mulch, but there was no insecticide, no herbicides, no fungicides, no nothing. They either made it on their own or they didn't. And so the ones that did make it are in the Earth Kind program. Since, I guess, 2 years ago, the gentleman that started the Earth Kind program retired. And that's how long he's been doing this Earth Kind program. Well, he's retired. The new guy, Paul, is taking over. And when we were down at a convention in San Antonio, we were talking, he was saying that we're going to start going to all of our extension agents around the state with the roses. So now you're going to get a true representation of how those roses are going to do, whether it's out in West Texas, South Texas, East Texas, North Texas, Central Texas. And so I think we're going to get a whole lot better data and more real-life history on these plants. So that's pretty exciting. These are the roses that are here on the grounds in the Rose Garden from Antique Rose Emporium. I've made 2 trips down here bringing roses, and I just am so tickled pink that we get to be a part of this. And inside your rose reader, this list should be in there on that little tannish piece of paper. And if it's not in there, y'all can take a picture of this. I'll roll back and y'all take a picture of this if y'all want. So, moving forward, we're constantly adding new additional educational programs for all ages, and it's so much fun having the mother and daughters programs where mama's doing one thing and the daughter's doing something that's more age appropriate for her. Reviving and refreshing the gardens all the time. We're reworking the children's garden right now. The garden that is around the stone kitchen, the only original building to the property, we're going to actually turn it back into a true homestead garden. So there'll be edibles in there, and it'll be an actual mid-1800s garden. we're working on a memorial garden. We have a couple of memorial benches and a statuary out there. We're going to do something a little bit more formal, I guess, and more set aside and distinct from the rest of the garden. When we were in Shreveport, we're working with a gentleman. His name is Claude. He's in his mid-80s, and he's been a Rosarian all his life, and he's been working on this estate for the last number of years. And on that estate, they have nothing but ramblers. Ramblers are climbers, but robust ones. I mean, these guys they like to get after it. And so she's got 350 different varieties of these roses, most of them that came out of Europe. They've never been in commerce here. Nobody's ever seen them. Back in the early 1900s up into the 1940s, I think World War II kind of put a crimp on it, but like the New York Rose Garden, they were predominantly ramblers that they had in those old rose gardens. And so we're working with Claude to bring a bunch of these back, and he's got a couple of other rose breeder and nursery companies that he's working with as well. And so real excited about that. So what we want to do is we're going to build a fence, and we're going to plant ramblers on it that will designate that memorial area with a hard wall of flowers. So I think it's going to be pretty neat. Oh, there it is, American Rose Society, the Save the Rambler program. And we're partners with the Heritage Rose Foundation as well as other rose outfits and groups. We're looking at we're in the planning phase of creating a 501c3, and I don't know if that particular designation in the IRS code is what we're going to go with. There's some other options as well, but it'll be the Friends of the Antique Rose Emporium, and that will help keep the grounds. That garden is a full-time job, and we've got people out. I had an oilman from Houston, and he was sitting underneath the cypress tree in the benches that I always go to, and I said, "How you doing today?" He said, "Oh, I'm fine. He said, "Yeah, my wife's shopping. She's picking up some roses." I said, "Well, that's great. That's great." He said, "What endowment keeps up with these gardens?" I said, "Your wife buying those roses?" And he was like, "Good night. You got to be kidding me." I said, "No, sir." He said, "Y'all got to fix that." So we're just playing with the idea. I don't know, but again, it's to preserve and educate and cultivate. That's what this is all about. The whole living legacy of these old gardens and bringing them back, bringing these ramblers back. I think that's just too cool. I've never seen them, and I've been in the industry all my life, and I don't have a clue what half of these are that we've been seeing. So our mission at the Antique Rose Emporium, strive to educate, and that's our biggest thing, is bringing the community together and all of us learning together, and it's that renewed passion for nature. You know, I have the best job in the world when I get out in those gardens. I'm getting to meet people that are like-minded and that have a history tied back to the Antique Rose Emporium. And I mean, it's really tough to have a bad day. I've had so many people, I mean, when I say so many, I'm truly saying in the thousands, where people come out to the Antique Rose Emporium Gardens and they say, I step into the grounds here and it's like all the crud of the world just falls off my shoulders and I can just breathe. I can just be out here and enjoy, and then we're doing something right. So please come and join us out there in the gardens and have the trash of of everyday life fall off your shoulders too. So we have some upcoming activities in the garden. Saturday, May 23rd is a Rose Rustlers spring meeting. It'll be held in the chapel. And we've got Dr. Ong from Texas A&M. He's taken over the whole rose breeding program over there. Brilliant guy. We've got all kinds of fun things going in conjunction with A&M and Dr. Ong. Then Saturday, June 20th, is Father's Day weekend, the car show. I'll have my old 24 Model T out there in that. And then Friday through Sunday, November 6th through 9th, is our Fall Festival of Roses. And we have we're still gathering up our lineup of speakers, but Claude, that gentleman with the Ramblers, he's going to be one of our speakers. I twisted his arm when we were together this past weekend, so he's going to be there talking about the Ramblers. And I don't know who else yet. This is our new employee break room. That is an old corn crib that was moved onto the property. And right down from the corn crib, just to the right of that, is what we call the gallery building. And about a month ago, I was out in the garden. There was a tour bus from Austin that came in. And so I was giving them a tour around the property. And I met Lloyd Benson's son. Lloyd Benson was born in our gallery building when it was back over towards Cat Springs. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. He said, nope, Daddy was born in there, and we donated it to Mike to bring out here because Mama wanted to move back into it. No, he said, no, we're not doing that. There's no air conditioning, no heating. It's just no, nothing. So those are the things we got going on coming up. And I guess do we open it up for questions, or how do we do from here?
If you raise your hand, we only have time for 2. So if you raise your hand, I'll bring you the mic, and if you could speak into the mic. Oh, back here.
This is kind of a question. I just want to tell you how much I appreciate the transition you did. I've gone to the Antique Rose Emporium by accident because my husband can't drive. We ended up in Round Top and then ended up there. I do like to garden, but I'd never had roses. I can't tell you the years of joy that place has brought to me. And I went in the year that Mike was kind of thinking about maybe he should sell. And as you can imagine, a lot of customers were uneasy. It's a beautiful place. It's almost sacred. People in here may think I'm nuts. But there is something, what you said exactly right. You come in there, it's so beautiful. And when you brought the festivals back, which is so much work, the Southern Bulbs guy was there. I have a whole bunch of bulbs that have come up. I planted 2 years ago when you started doing that. They're all successful. The daffodils, the kind of things which I've never had luck with. So if you haven't visited this place, it's easy to get to. It's a beautiful place. It is right around from Old Baylor, so people go there for wildflowers along that way.
I take care of Baylor's properties.
There you go. And of course, my yard reflects the joy I feel and the money I have paid out over the years to Antique Rose Emporium. I have sent mail order to friends across the country. This is a really good opportunity to share something really unique with. So it's not much of a question, but just thank you. I know that was really hard. It was a big move for your family, big investment, and I made the commitment then anything I could do to help that transition be smooth, I want to do. So if you haven't visited, go do that.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that very much. Yeah, Mike had been doing it for so many years. They just got tired. You know, it's hard work. He's in his mid-70s, and it really is. I had no idea how many jobs I bought when we purchased that. We've got almost 50 employees that help us. I mean, and we'd be dead in the water without them. And so we're real fortunate to be able to carry this on. When Kim and I bought the business, the name of the company that we bought it under is Heritage this is my wife's and my legacy to our children and our grandchildren. And so it's really wonderful having everybody there working together, and all. It's been real fun.
Last question. Let me give you the mic.
What's everybody else here?
Who built that arch with the clay pots?
That was an artisan that Mike Shoup found. He was out of Austin, and I've been trying to track that cat down.
Oh, okay.
And I have not been able to get hold of it. I mean, I've got customers. I would love that by y'all.
Oh, that's neat looking.
I don't know what to tell you anymore. It's like those great big mushroom-looking planters that have Peggy Martin and all on it. I have so many people come in and say, do y'all have any of those for sale? I'm like, well, first of all, it weighs about 2,000 pounds. But I came up with a design of a smaller one that would be only like 8 foot tall and lighter weight rebar, and it would stack up, and then you could unfold it and hook it together. And I talked to the welder that built those, and he won't return my calls anymore. I'm joking, he'll return my calls, but he said, no, I did those, and that was a one-off thing, baby.
Let's give Mr. Keeter a round of applause.